Good evening, everybody. I'm Joey Jones, along with Tommy Lahren, Kaylee McGee-White, and Mark Thiessen, and welcome to the big weekend show. We've got a big story tonight. We're just 2 days away from Election Day as early voting ends this weekend in states with bellwether races. In New Jersey, rising costs and crime under leftist policies could help Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli flip the state red. In Virginia, Winsome Earl-Sears is banking on the country's shift to the right as she campaigns on culture wars. And finally, in New York City, Democrats are leaning into socialism as Zohran Mamdani continues to be the frontrunner in polls. The outcome of these elections, well, they could shape the 2026 midterms and determine the country's future. We're speaking with New York City mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa and Virginia gubernatorial candidate Winsome Earl-Sears for tonight's two big close-ups as they're making their final pitches to voters. And we have Team Fox coverage on all three key races. But right now we have Alexis McAdams covering the New York City mayoral race and Rich Edson reporting on the ground in Virginia on the governor's race there. But we begin tonight with Bryan Llenas, who has the latest on the New Jersey gubernatorial race. Bryan?
Joey, good evening. Today is the last day of in-person early voting in New Jersey. Polls close at 6 p.m. And so far, according to the data out there, registered Democrats have a slight edge over registered Republicans in the number of in-person early votes cast. But twice as many registered Democrats have voted by mail as Republicans. In fact, more than 200,000 more. This means Republican Jack Ciattarelli is likely going to need huge turnout on Election Day to beat Democrat Mikey Sherrill. Ciattarelli today made 3 campaign stops in New Jersey's MAGA country, Monmouth and Ocean counties. He's making the case this election is about moving on from 8 years of Democratic Governor Phil Murphy and about choosing a real Jersey guy.
They brought John Corzine here from Illinois. Didn't work out so well. They brought Phil Murphy here from Massachusetts. Didn't work out so well. My opponent's not from New Jersey either. So Middletown, I got a really simple idea. You ready? How about we elect the Jersey guy? We cannot afford another 4 years of Phil Murphy's failed policies. Make no mistake, if my opponent's elected, it's more of the same, only worse.
Sherrill today campaigned alongside Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego to try to court Latino voters. Sherrill's brought in about a dozen Democratic Party stars to campaign with her, including former President Obama yesterday in Newark.
My fight doesn't and can't end at the border of New Jersey. We've got to take on all those hits coming from Trump and Washington, D.C.
This time, his strategy is to suck up to the Republicans in Washington. So Donald Trump called Mikey's opponent 100% MAGA. Not a great endorsement.
Ciattarelli has run for governor 3 times. It's his 3rd time, but he says the energy and momentum is on his side to flip New Jersey red. We'll find out in 2 days. Joey?
Thanks, Bryan. Now to senior national correspondent Rich Edson, who's live tonight down in Virginia. Rich?
Good evening, Joey. It is farm country campaigning for Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears. Just wrapped an event here. She's campaigning with Governor Glenn Youngkin around the Richmond area. The two are making the case for the Republican ticket, trying to get a repeat of 2021 when Republicans captured the governor's mansion. They are painting the Democratic candidate for governor, Abigail Spanberger, as dangerously liberal, a politician who is extreme on energy and cultural issues. Now, Republicans are also pointed to Democratic candidate for Attorney General Jay Jones, whose violent 2022 text messages have upended this race. Spanberger and other Virginia Democrats have condemned the texts, but refused to call on Jones to drop out of the race. Polling has shown Spanberger with a lead, though with Jones now in a tight race with incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares.
I have Democrats coming up to me saying I may be a Democrat, I may be voting for Democrats otherwhere on the ballot, but I'm voting for you, one, because I think you're competent, or as one mom told me in Vienna, she's like, I don't want to see Virginia become the laughingstock of the country. I think him being on that stage is an insult to every mother that has lost a child to violence.
Spanberger has spent this final campaign Sunday up in Northern Virginia with its high concentration of Democratic voters. She and Democrats are campaigning on Republicans in Congress and the White House, criticizing federal layoffs in an area with tons of government workers and blaming high prices on Trump administration tariffs.
there are so many people in Virginia who are feeling the impact of all of the chaos coming out of Washington, whether it is tariffs increasing input costs, whether it is worry about health care down the line, or whether it is the extraordinary impact of this government shutdown. And particularly in Northern Virginia, where so many people dealt with the realities of DOJ.
Early voting ended in Virginia yesterday. If you compare the early voting returns to 2021, 200,000 more Virginians voted this year early than they did in the last candidate campaign for governor. Back to you, Joey.
Thanks, Rich. All right, finally, we're going to turn to New York City mayoral race, where Zohran Mamdani has remained the front runner since winning the Democrat primary. But as the New York Post warns on today's cover, not so fast. Alexis McAdams is live in New York City with the latest. Not so fast, Alexis.
Yeah, not a bad New York Post cover there for Andrew Cuomo to wake up to here in the Big Apple. Check it out, though, over my shoulder. This is the line still for early voting, you guys, in New York City. It's been wrapped around the block all day, and from being out here covering this race for a couple of weeks now, this is the longest line that we've seen for early voting so far, and it's not over yet. One thing the voters do agree on when you talk to them in the line or talk to them in other areas across the city, Joey, is that New York City is too expensive. What they don't agree on is the person in charge to fix it. They don't believe Zohran Mamdani has the kind of backing and the exact plan to make the Big Apple more affordable. Watch.
I think it sounds so good. I want to get on a free bus. You know, I want free groceries. There's nothing free. The first thing you learn in life is there's nothing free in life.
But it sounds good to some people on paper, but when they start to kind of figure it out, they don't know if it's going to add up. This is a look at those lines again. This is on the city's west side, as the race for New York City mayor has been in the national spotlight. That's why those lines are growing. According to the latest Fox News poll, look at this. Mamdani's lead has narrowed since early October, okay? But he's still ahead by double digits, kind of no matter how you slice it, with former Governor Andrew Cuomo in second place and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa in a distant third. Mamdani is campaigning on those free buses, the free childcare, and freezing the rent, but supporters aren't sure if he's even going to be able to deliver. Is that why people are going for him? Because he's different than the rest?
He's charismatic. I'm sure he'll be wrapped up in his own scandal. I mean, what mayor of New York isn't? And we'll make a big deal out of it.
I like him. I think he sounds genuine to me, and I feel like he really cares about New Yorkers.
So that's what we're hearing out here in New York City. People had their minds made up when they were in this line in the city's west side, but you hit other neighborhoods, they tell you a different story. So we'll keep an eye on it for Tuesday when they make the big decision, Joey.
It looks like you found the two nicest Zohran Mamdani voters out there. They seem very pleasant people, Alexis. I appreciate that.
That's right. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Tommy, got to bring it to you. Let's take this to 30,000 feet. We just covered three major elections, really four when you break it down with the AG in Virginia. There's this idea that Democrats maybe aren't going to do so well in the midterms. This idea, I think it's being floated mostly by conservative writers and thinkers, this idea that Democrats, they don't stand for anything. They're fumbling even on the shutdown. And maybe that's true. So when we call these bellwether, what we're alluding to is the idea that maybe these are showing you what's ahead. I look at it like these are a little bit more parochial than that. They're a little bit more situational of the states they're in and the people running.
These aren't necessarily swing states, I think is what you're saying. Yeah, these are blue areas, right? Mm-hmm. I think New Jersey is going to be the outlier here. I think Chitterelli has a real chance. I spend a lot of time in New Jersey on the weekends, and like I told you last weekend, I've seen some Chitterelli signage, haven't seen any Cheryl signage. I also am so lucky as to be able to see the attack ads and the commercials for either candidate on repeat in New Jersey. And I'll tell you, Cheryl's advertisements, they're not moving me, right? I hear her say over and over again that she's a pilot. That's great. That's esteemed. Wonderful. Not sure how that translates to being the governor of New Jersey. And I've heard Chitterelli say over and over again, Democrats have had their chance. If you don't like the way things are and you feel things in New Jersey are too expensive, why would you vote for another Democrat? So I think he makes a real compelling case. Here in New York City, Mark and I were talking about this in the green room. I don't see either outcome for Democrats being a good one. So you've got Mamdani that wins. OK, that's great for Republicans in the midterms. They can point to it and say, you got your socialists. There you go. Is this what the Democrat Party is? So that's the one outcome. But if Cuomo wins, that also indicates that that deep blue socialist leftist ideology doesn't even work in New York City. So I think as far as New York City goes, none of it looks good. Virginia's the one where Democrats might make out okay. But again, I don't think that that's any big shock. No. So I don't think this is really as bellwether as it's, portrayed to be.
It's situationally, Mark, and welcome to the show again. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
I did my research on this one because when I thought to myself, okay, if these aren't bellwether, what's history show us? And we're not having to look back at a different president. We can look back at President Trump in 2016, 17, 18. And so when you look at that, the stats that are kind of across the top is right now today, 42 seats, that's in state houses and the U.S. House or in U.S. Congress, across 18 states, they've had a 15% gain, Democrats have, over the Trump-Kamala percentages. So 15% when it comes to voter turnout and who's voting for them. When we go back to 2017, 2018, that was about a 10.6% change. So they're outperforming 16 and 17 right now today with these special elections that have happened so far.
Yeah, so I'm not a big believer that low turnout off-year elections are a bellwether of anything. Yeah. In fact, they favor the Democrats. The Democrats tend to do better in these. And as Tommy pointed out, these are, blue to purple states, right? And a deep blue city in New York. So I just don't think that this is a bellwether for anything. I think that one of the reasons why Ciccarelli might do well is because there's a Mondami effect across the Hudson. Because there's a lot of the people who live in New Jersey, right near here, it's because they don't want to live in New York. Right? They've already defected with their feet. They've already voted with their feet to move to New Jersey. So they can't vote against Mondami, but they can vote for Ciccarelli, and so they can cast their ballot. So I think there's an impact there that is helping the Republicans.
Kaylee, this one is, I think this is the most important sentiment here when we talk about what's going to happen. This is from The Hill. This is Douglas McKinnon. He says, Republicans are still swimming upstream against decades of Democratic propaganda spread far and wide by media allies. And so what he's getting at there, if you read this whole piece on The Hill, is this idea that there's a sentiment that Democrats are going to do bad. There's a sentiment, perhaps spread by those who have an interest, that Republicans are going to do well. But really, there's so much ground to conquer, especially in places like Northern Virginia and New Jersey, where the media has really been complicit in getting Democrats elected.
Well, and to that point, the fact that a state like New Jersey is even as close as it is actually a very bad sign for the Democrats, even if they do tend to perform better in these low turnout off-year elections. And I think Democrats want to make these elections a bellwether against the Trump administration as a sort of symptom for how the country is feeling about the Trump administration and his agenda. But I don't think that's going to work, because I think Democrats assume that people are far more upset with the Trump administration than they actually are. New Jersey is a case in point. Again, the fact that Ciccarelli is really doing well in these polls is a very bad sign for Democrats. And keep in mind, New Jersey was the state with the second biggest swing to the right in 2024. You're seeing a continuation of a swing to the right in an off-year election where Democrats should be performing far better than they are. And one other thing that I found very interesting about New Jersey in particular is that this swing to the right is actually among minority voters. Atlas Intel, which was one of the most accurate pollsters in 2024, found that Ciccarelli has 60% support among black voters. He's up 20 points above Mikey Sherrill. That suggests that the GOP is continuing to make gains among minority voters, which is one of the key coalitions that Democrats typically rely on. So in my opinion, these are all very good signs for Republicans, even if they don't necessarily come out on top of all of these races.
Yeah, I think that's, just to cap this off, I think that's my opinion. Regardless if they win them or not, if they close the gap narrowly and cost Democrats a lot of money and time on these races, that shows how strong they're performing in what I would say are very blue areas. So I like that. All right. Coming up on this jam-packed big weekend show, we're breaking down all the major races to watch on Election Day. Plus, California Governor Gavin Newsom, with his hands moving around, is now claiming he doesn't want to be president. And Nigeria now says it would welcome America's help in helping them in stopping the killing of Christians. But there's a catch. Stick with us.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.